part of the journey. And so it is not, you being weak. It's not you being heartless. It's not you being anything except a caregiver on the journey, because that is part of the process and the journey, unfortunately.
Right. And a part of you being a human being, you know,
Exactly. Hmm.
like we can only take so much. So that definitely kind of sums up exactly what caregiver burnout is. So let's talk about some of the causes of caregiver burnout.
Hmm. So the causes of caregiver burnout are pretty simple. It's the unrelenting day to day of caregiving. It is the inability to catch your breath because of lack of time, because of lack of resources. It is lack of assistance. It is another cause would be competing priorities, always having, I need to take mom to the doctor, but I need to take my kiddo to practice. Which one wins today? Or I need to make mom eat, but then I also need to be on time to work. So it's always these competing priorities that you have. Other causes would be just lack of personal space and privacy, and just always having someone in your house, in your room, in your things. Lack of sleep. So it's a lot of lacks and lot of imbalances, and just going back to the top, it's just the unrelenting day-to-day responsibilities and demands of caregiving.
Mm-hmm. Another one that I think is unrealistic expectations. And
Oh, for
so
sure.
we set these expectations of being superwoman or superman, and you're not superwoman or superman. So I think, I mean, we'll get to ways to manage that, but setting realistic expectations of what you actually are capable of doing and not trying to do too
Exactly.
much, I think is also one of them. And then
A hundred
um
percent. Oh
also
no, go ahead.
unrealistic demands. Okay, unrealistic demands from other
Mm-hmm.
people who don't
Mm-hmm.
realize how hard your job is, you know, and how just overwhelmed you are. And so now they're asking you to do other things and adding to your plate when you already have a full plate. So I think it's just a long list of things that can, with the list being so long, that could lead to caregiver burnout. That's why so many people are suffering from caregiver burnout.
Exactly. And it also is an overwhelming feeling of emotions
Mm-hmm.
that you're trying to actually navigate through tactical things like medications and cooking and cleaning and going to work. But on top of all of those just enormous amount of to-do list, you're trying to navigate those with all of these huge emotions on you. Emotions of just feeling sad, emotions of feeling resentful, emotions of regret. So all of these emotions plus the tactical things all heaped in together will make you hit that wall and hit that wall hard.
Mm-hmm. Um, that's a good segue into my next question, which is what are some of the warning signs? So you talk
Hmm.
emotions.
Yeah. And so when it comes to the warning signs, they are oftentimes pretty clear. Um, but we believe that that's our new normal. So we ignore the warning signs. And so what I want to stress is
Mm-hmm.
that though caregiver burnout is normal, you should not be existing in a constant state of burnout. And so we need to understand and acknowledge that it isn't normal to have the high extremes of these things. Are these things that I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
ready to say should be present and wax and wane and up and down? Of course. But to live in a constant state of extremes of these is when it's not normal. So some of the warning signs are anger, like not just occasional frustration, but you are most of the times now angry, and more specifically, anger at or towards your loved one. Then there's also anxiety, just a feeling of overwhelming fear and dread all the time. Depression. And we know what depression looks like, but oftentimes it's different for different people. It manifests in different ways of not being able to sleep or always being sleepy. It manifests in different things, even in your body, like headaches, um, loss of appetite, increased appetite, exhaustion, inability to concentrate, disturbed sleep patterns. I think I said earlier, and decreased need or desire to socialize with other people. And so all of those symptoms plus some more. And I think that I want to just revisit that it's a persistence of those things.
Mhm, mhm. And sometimes it's more than one of those things at once. I mean, you're mad, you're frustrated, you're not sleeping, you're not eating right, and when you start to get all of those things start to pile up, they start to take their toll, you know? And some people live your new normal, what you're used to, like that's your everyday,
Exactly.
and you just accept it as this is my everyday situation, Um,
Hmm.
whew, yeah. Just thinking
Are
of
you feeling this
some
in your
burnout moments too.
soul?
I mean, this is real talk, as they say. This is a real, real situation. And then, I mean, it also goes back to the people around you not recognizing it and not realizing it. Like this is even a conversation not just for caregivers, but for the family of
For
caregivers or the
sure.
friends of
Hmm.
caregivers to be able to recognize these warning signs, in that person, to be able to offer some sort of reprieve, relief, or even just acknowledgement. Like sometimes,
Exactly.
I mean, sometimes there might not be any relief available, but just even
Hmm. Hmm.
acknowledging that the person is going through that can sometimes be helpful. So,
Exactly.
so yeah, I
Just
think.
saying that I see you, that
Hmm.
I see you.
Hmm.
And though I don't have anything to offer right now, which we're going to get into that, but
Hmm.
just going to what you said, just to say, I don't have anything to offer you except the fact that I can only imagine what you're going through. And I do understand, and there's no judgment for this or that. And just saying those words to someone
Hmm.
is like a weight off of their chest oftentimes.
Hmm. Absolutely, I can attest to that. I mean,
I see you, Veronica.
thank you, friend. I appreciate that. I feel much better already. I feel much better and less burnout as we speak. Because
It's just lifting.
it it works. It works. No, we're joking, but we're serious. Like it,
Very serious,
this
because
is.
I'm gonna circle back around to when I'm sure that you and I will get into some ways to prevent and help. But one of those is surrounding yourself with a certain type of person and certain type of people. And so,
Certain type of
we'll
people.
revisit that, but that's important.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, I guess we could actually kind of go into that right now as far as ways to prevent um, caregiver burnout.
Okay. Um, First and foremost, there is not, like, the word prevent.
Hmm.
I want to kind of stray away from, just because I believe that it's very difficult to do,
Hmm.
to use the word prevent. But I
Hmm.
think we can look at ways to decrease it, ways to taper down the intensity
Cope,
of it, just
cope.
because I just want everyone to hear me say that the job of a caregiving is so unrelenting, so consistent, and so much that to say prevention is almost impossible. But we do want to say, how can I, what's the word, like mitigate it, decrease it, and just be aware of it. And so, one of the first things that we have to do is take care of your own health. As a healthcare professional, I cannot stress enough how important it is for you, mom, to take your own medication and you're worrying about dad taking his. How important it is for you, mom, to eat your food and eat healthy food and not just try to make him eat his. Like, you have to take care of your own blood pressure, your own thyroid condition. When was the last time that you kept your doctor's appointment? So it is crucial, uber important that you take care of your own health. Because if you're not physically well, then emotional health is not going to be present either. So
Mhm,
take care of your own self. So
mhm,
must. The
mhm.
second thing is going to sound like a lot of people are going to say, oh, easier said than done. But you have to build in breaks. And you have to. You cannot run. Veronica and I run half marathons sometimes. We've run some together, and um, it is imperative that that at certain points along that little journey, we stop for water. There's a break session here. Sometimes we run it, sometimes we walk it. We build in breaks. And so, what do breaks look like? I'm not saying that you may have the opportunity to go to Tahiti every other week, but does a break look like when dad's sleeping, I go sit in my car on my seat warmers and listen to a podcast that I enjoy? Does a break look like that when my husband gets home, he sits with dad and I go for a walk? You have to say, where can I specifically and intentionally build in a break? And then there are those longer opportunities that you get with a sister or a cousin or paid help, to say, I'm going away for a weekend or a week, and make that happen. So definitely you have to build in and schedule breaks. Then you have to get help,
Can I add
whether
something?
that, yeah,
Can
go
I
ahead.
add? I was going to add to your break suggestion. Sometimes a break is going to Costco. Like, I want to just stress how much a break is not necessarily a trip to the spa. In some situations where you are 24/7 caregiving, being able to walk around a grocery store by yourself can be a break. So
Exactly.
I just want to stress the point that a break can be anything from Tahiti to a walk around the block, to sitting in your car, to locking yourself in your room,
Hmm.
so you can breathe for just a second.
Exactly. And I think that because as I talk to caregivers and give this suggestion, I would literally say half of them say, it's impossible. I can't get a break. And I say, yes, you can.
Hmm.
And we look at their schedule and I say, okay, I'm going to go from the moment that dad wakes up until the moment he sleeps. And we're going to spend time finding out, when is there a practical way for you to get a 5, a 10, or a 15-minute break. And so sometimes I get a little bit stern with my caregivers when you give them this, what I call bag of tricks. And I want to make sure that they hear this, that I'm going to give you about 10 or 12 things. Only 3 may fit your situation, but take those 3 and be intentional about those 3, because even if it's little pockets of time, those pockets of time add up and they matter.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So take a break. Find out how. Then you need to get help. That can be calling up your family and say, hey, listen, I know that I'm primary, but you all have to step up to some degree. What can you do? And I'm going to pencil you in and send it to you in an email, highlighted and stamped. If we need to sign it, whatever. But you come every Tuesday for 2 hours at least. Or, brother, you come on Sunday so I can go sit on my seat warmers. But you call in some backup and reinforcement, as best that you can. And I think that oftentimes people don't want to accept help. So caregivers need to be willing to accept help whenever it is offered. And then oftentimes we don't want to ask for help. We
Hmm.
need to ask for help, period. Because if you are too prideful to do that, then you are with your foot on a gas going towards that wall.
Hmm.
So,
Um,
um, go ahead.
I was going to say, I spoke to a caregiver earlier today, and it comes to, like you said, the issue of, it's not that she or we don't want to accept the help. It's you don't want to ask for help from people who you think should automatically be helping. So she was having
Exactly.
She was having a situation with some siblings who were not doing anything to offer to help. And she was like, y'all see what's going on, you know what's going on. So if you're not gonna help, then you know, forget you. You know what I mean? Basically. uh, it's pretty much where she was. And I mean, I get it. I get it. So what do you say to those caregivers who are like, they see what's happening, they know she's sick, they have not stepped up? Like, what do
Right.
you?
Um, so I got married, like marriage advice years ago from this older couple. They had been married for like 35 years. And my husband and I actually were on our honeymoon. And so we asked them, hey, what makes it last? And the woman said several good things, but the thing that I remember the most is that she said, don't set yourself up to be disappointed. And she said, if you know he's going to forget your birthday and he does it every year, then you tell him 3 months in advance, don't forget my birthday. Give me your phone. I'm going to put a reminder in it. And she said, yes, it takes away some of the romance, but whatever. Don't set yourself up to be disappointed. And so the same thing, if you have a brother, sister, cousin, dad that you know is not doing their part, they should, yes. Now that you have said the truth, let's get over it and don't set yourself up to be disappointed. You say, hey, listen, you're not asking, so I'm asking you. This is what I need from you. And yes, people should, but waiting on people to do what they should, you're gonna run into that wall. That's it. Like, I saw a quote and it's actually up on my wall in my room right now. It says, don't expect you from other people. And oftentimes we look around at our family members and our friends, and we are just appalled at what they're saying and not saying and doing and not doing, because that is what we would do. But at some point as adults, we have to realize that I can't expect people to navigate this life as I do. And so now that I know that, I'm going to act and adjust accordingly.
Absolutely. That is really what it is. Don't expect you from other people, because clearly they do not operate
Get the
the same
memo.
life exactly as you. So a lot of things that, like you said, as adults, it's kind of black and white. You know what I mean? It is what it is, as they say. So
Yep,
that's
for
okay.
sure. So make sure you're getting that help wherever it comes from. And some of the help, like I said, is paid help. And I know that everyone's budget is different, but that's something that if you can build that into your budget from time to time, then that would be something. And I know, Veronica, you're really great at looking into different funding sources and grants or different things that through Medicare or Medicaid that are available. So I would actually just say, look around and investigate what financial assistance is available that you weren't even aware about. And I know that, Veronica, you may be able to speak to some of that a little bit better than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've been doing this for 7 years, clearly, for my grandmother and then now for my mom. And I have been able to find different sources, and I piece stuff together. Really, it's really doing that work, finding the resources, and then piecing stuff together. So in Dallas, there is the Area Agency on Aging, which is a great resource for a number of things, but they also offered some respite help. So I would encourage people to reach out to them. I've received a respite scholarship from an organization one time. So definitely to piece stuff together. There's other like community nonprofits that offer reduced pricing on caregiving services. The name escapes me right now, but if anyone wants to reach out to me to get that information, I'm happy to share. But yeah, it's definitely about piecing things together, figuring it out. Some of the larger home health companies have a much higher hourly rate. So then it comes to asking around. Maybe you ask your members or ask, people in your network if they know of anyone, trustworthy, of course, who is looking for that type of work, and they
For
might
sure.
be for a discounted rate.
Mhm.
Another resource for caregivers, or to find a caregiver or sitter for your loved one, is care.com. There are, and those many of those people have been through background checks. They have a bio on there. There are resources out there, and I say it all the time, like, nobody is alone on this journey. You just have to be intentional about finding that help.
Exactly. For sure. Good information.
Mhm.
Um, just some other prevention things is to know your triggers. Like, there are some things with your loved ones that, yeah, don't bother you. But there are some other things that are going to drive you batty and mad. And you need to know those things and have a plan for when they happen. Will you just walk away? Will you leave? Like, will you go, I don't know, for a walk around the block or whatever? But whatever the triggers are that your loved one does that gets you every time, you have to have a plan for what you're going to do when that thing happens. A big
Mhm.
deal, because I interact with caregivers every day that they're fine until this one thing is said or this one thing is done, and it just bubbles over. And so just know what your triggers are, and also kind of piggybacking on that is don't sweat the small stuff. Like, there are so many huge, just big stuff that goes on with caregiving. What are the things that you just need to say, oh well, it just is what it is, and it's gonna be that, and just keep moving.
I think it's interesting you say that. I also think that's kind of one of the side effects of burnout is that you start to be like, oh well, it'll work itself out. It'll get figured out. I can't deal with that right now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's definitely a way to cope, but it's also one of the side effects of burnout.
And so, like when we talked about the definition of burnout, the most important part of it was that it if it begins to endanger the
Right.
caregiver or the loved one. So when you
Right.
have something like don't flip the small stuff, and you say that sometimes it can be a prevention but also a side effect, well, it's more so preventative when it's like it's not a big deal, it's not going to cause hurt, harm, or danger.
Right.
But you can see it as a sign of burnout when it is something that, like, oh, mom has eaten in 3 days because
Right.
she's
She
she's fighting
refuses
me
to eat.
about it.
Right. 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 Yeah. She
Oh
refuses to
well.
eat. Right. Exactly. She hasn't eaten.
Hmm.
That's not the type of stuff we mean to brush off.
Exactly.
Right.
So I'm saying that, like, if it's like mom isn't eating all of her peas versus
Right.
mom isn't eating, then
Right.
if you're saying, oh well, to the mom isn't eating, then you're more on the burnout side and you need to get some quick help. So
Right. Absolutely.
mhm.
I think also back to triggers. One thing I heard at the very beginning of this journey is you will never win an argument with a person with Alzheimer's. So all of that,
Never.
and it takes a little bit into this journey to actually realize that, and actually the light bulb comes on, because at first people start off kind of going back and forth, or they start off taking the stuff personal, like, you're just saying that just to get at me, or just, because it's me. And then a few years in, you start to realize that, you know what, I'm the only person here who is upset by, even 5, 10 minutes, an hour later, they have moved on with their life, and you are still stewing and, wasting
Exactly.
valuable energy, upset about
Hmm.
something that they no longer care about and don't even remember y'all had the discussion. So I
Yes,
think
and
that is something. Go ahead.
no, I'm saying they're the worst people to have an argument too, because afterwards, like, because they've forgotten about it, you're not going to get an apology. They're not going to be contrite. There's not going to be changed behavior. And those are all the things that we've taught ourselves, that when you argue with someone, that you do those things, you come back and apologize, you change the way that you acted. But a person with dementia is incapable of doing those things. And so you just have to remind yourself of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's goes back to adjusting those triggers and not letting those triggers get to you, you know. And then
Exactly,
also with the
for sure.
you know, I know something that people don't want to talk about is violence, you know,
Hmm.
when your loved one starts to be violent towards you and just
Yes,
that's clearly a trigger, like a
exactly.
100% trigger. But again, having a plan, you know, or kind of in your mind if this is something that's happened before or happens often. And when it gets to a point where it's unsafe, finding some medical intervention, be it pharmaceuticals, be
Exactly.
it, you know, living arrangement, you know, like at some point when triggers get full, then it's time to have someone else step in, have a, you know, another
Exactly.
professional step in.
Hmm. It's so important that I think that oftentimes, just in life, but to apply it especially to this topic, we feel that there is somewhere out there a solution that will make everyone happy. And when it comes to caregiving and caring for your loved one, you're going to have to make a decision that may not feel good to you, that may not appease your sister or your brother who's in another state or has their own family and they're suggesting that you do this, or it's not going to appease dad or even the person that you're caregiving. Like when it comes to situations like violence, you are going to sometimes have to make tough decisions that may not feel good to everyone involved. But whether it be medications, whether it be for a season of time, some transition to a facility, but there are some times that you have to make decisions when it gets to that level.
Hmm.
And you can't wait on a decision to feel good to everybody when you know it's the right one.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So it's tough. And I think that, like, I think also when you said expectations, that's another reason why we get burned out is because we're constantly trying to figure out like the absolute 100% best way to handle this. And sometimes you just handle it and you
Hmm.
can't get paralyzed or down on yourself or frustrated by trying to find that one decision that makes everybody happy. You just have to alter your expectations, and sometimes changing your expectations happens. Like last week, you wanted mom to do this, but after trying, I've adjusted my expectation.
Hmm.
Or I thought that I wasn't going to need help to take care of my dad, but I've adjusted that. It's okay to, as you go through the journey, to change what you thought it was going to look like. And so
Hmm.
that's another reason why we get burned out is because we say that how I started this and what I said I was going to do when I started, and I'm still trying to do that now, but
Right.
mom has regressed
Right.
and we need to change that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. And the disease is so ever changing, you know, like this is a progressive disease. This is whatever you see today is likely the best that you will see your loved one. And from there, they
exactly.
will, you know, transition into other phases of the disease. And so as they
Hmm.
transition, like you said, you have to adjust your expectations, you know, and adjust just your mind and understanding that things will not necessarily stay the same. This is a roller coaster for sure.
For sure.
Hmm.
Hmm. For sure. And then I use, as I see your example of a roller coaster, um, the dips are deeper, but the rebound, the recoils are lower.
Hmm.
And so you don't get those highs. Each time they go down, they don't come back as high. And so you have to constantly recalibrate with that roller coaster.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Whew.
Um, and so, as an occupational therapist, who I'm just all about movement and health and wellness, a big one that we all need to do just across the board, but especially caregivers, is exercise. You got to move. It really does just release all kind of positive brain chemicals that help you feel better. And it's not just smoke and mirrors. It is scientific and medical proof. So whether it's on a treadmill, outside around the block, just finding something that you like to do, turning on the radio and dancing for 2 or 3 songs, but you really have to keep moving. And especially with COVID, I know that a lot of people are more confined, not getting out much, but it's really a non-negotiable. You have to find some way to move.
Definitely. I 100% agree. I have not moved much since COVID, but
I was just getting ready to ask you.
2020 come, we'll be ready and on top of it. But yeah, definitely exercise. I mean, again, something that comes in waves, like depending on where your loved one is in the journey and being able to find the time, or making the time rather, to do that. One big thing that I preach is about being intentional. Like, it is real easy to just lay up and kind of just be here, like it's real easy to get into a slump. In order to get out of those slumps, you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional about everything that you're saying about coping with the burnout is stuff that you have to be intentional about. You have to be intentional about giving yourself a break, like,
for sure,
about scheduling that, looking at your schedule, finding that time and making that time. It's not just gonna happen. You have to be intentional about asking for help, because a lot of times people are not going to offer. So you have to be intentional about being in that space to ask for help. So everything that we're saying, there is an underlying theme of being intentional.
Exactly. And like one of the other things that I think about when it comes to prevention and being intentional combined is, like, you have to almost assign someone to say, hey, I need you to take care of me. Like, I'm taking care of dad, but hey, daughter, I need you to take care of me. Meaning that here are my doctor's appointments. Can you make sure that I keep them? I told myself that I was going to exercise more. Can you hold me accountable to that? Can you make sure that I'm taking my medication? So sometimes you need somebody else to say, hey, I got you, and this is what that looks like. So help me be intentional about all this stuff, because sometimes when you feel bad, it's hard to be intentional. So you need someone that's going to say, come on, let's go for a walk.
Right. And I mean, that sounds great and wonderful, but I realize that some of us are in this, really isolated and alone. But I would recommend, even if it's going into like online, like support groups, there are a ton of online support groups and, spaces out there where maybe you live in rural Texas, and there's nobody but you and mom at the house, and you don't have anybody to hold you accountable. Sometimes, I've actually, and I mean, I know online is, not necessarily people think the safest route to do. So of course, be smart about it. I'm not saying go out and give strangers, your address. However, there are other caregivers who are going through a similar struggle as you, and if you don't have access to be able to get out, which of course now you can during COVID, but if you don't have access to be able to physically go out and find those people who can support you, then, sometimes there is a lot online. Even watching this now is you being intentional about, finding information and resources. So
I think that a phrase that I have coined is COVID creativity. I think it has really forced us to get creative with connections. And I know before COVID, it was a push to get off of social media and get off of the internet and have people interaction, which I am totally, totally a proponent of. But we're in a different season right now. And for this season, we need to lean on, internet connections and social media, however you can connect with Zoom. So your accountability partner that's going to help you take care of yourself, you can still do it via the phone or the computer or some other virtual means if you don't have that face-to-face ability.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the some of the positive about this is you are able to communicate with people all over the world. So,
Exactly.
that you might not have ever spoken to before, or that you definitely would not have the connection that you have to them now. So
For sure.
even friends, and I'm in Texas, friends in New York, even if that's my accountability partner in New York, and we're going to do a Zoom every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock and check in, you know,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Exactly.
which I was not jumping on video calls multiple days a week, pre-COVID.
No, prior to COVID.
That was not something that I would do. We've actually done interviews before face to face,
Mm-hmm.
which
We
is probably
have.
what we would have done now, you know. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, definitely to tap into those virtual resources.
Yep. And something else I was thinking about, Veronica, is and this is hard for a lot of caregivers, but you have to say to yourself, this one is for me, this one is for them. And let me tell you what I mean. So, like, let's just say you're having Thanksgiving dinner, and you know that to incorporate mom into this is going to be a bear, but you want this Thanksgiving to be for mom. So you're going to put the time, energy, effort to make this work. It may be chaos at some instances, but Thanksgiving is for mom. But you say, but Christmas, that's for me. And so what I mean is, I'm going to do the main bulk of my hosting when mama's down for her nap. And it may feel bad, but in order to prevent that burnout, you have to say, this situation, this time, this meal, this outing, is this for them or me? Because if you never outline that, it's always going to be for them, and it's just going to be too much. And
Hmm.
so sometimes this meal is for me. I'm
Hmm.
going to cook what I want. I
Hmm.
know they don't like it, but
Hmm.
if they eat grilled cheese for dinner,
Hmm.
I'm okay with that. Or cereal, because I want this.
Right.
So you just have to say, for me or them.
Hmm. That's true. And you have to have balance in that. So you brought up Thanksgiving actually, which now we have like just a little bit left. Let's talk about the holidays and avoiding caregiver
Okay.
out during the holidays, which are coming up.
Right. So I think it goes back to a lot of what we just said. Number one, expectations. Just redefining what it looks like. Like if you are accustomed to doing it this one way and having a lot of family over, I know it's COVID, so, but if lots of people overwhelm mom, then we might need to change that. Also, again, just making sure that you say, is this something that I'm going to do with the expectation of it fulfilling me and what I desire it look like? Or is this the year that I incorporate and put mom as the focus or dad as the focus or my husband as the focus? And depending on what you decide, that's going to look different. Also, just not letting other people put their own judgments and expectations on you. Like if someone says, well, I want you to come over. Well, I'm not coming this year because I don't want to take mom out, and be okay with that. And set boundaries on what you allow people to even say to you. Like cut it off, like nip it in the bud, and also set your own boundaries on what you allow to penetrate you. And I know that's big. And I know during the holidays, a lot of family members have their own what do you call them? Not rituals, traditions, and they may
Right.
want you to try to keep up with these traditions, but you just like, I don't want to do that. It doesn't fit what I have going on with who I'm caring for, and I'm okay with that. So,
Right. Absolutely.
mhm,
Some other things that I've talked about in the past about just trying to kind of relieve some of the stress around the holidays is think about the time of day that your loved one is at their best.
for
So,
sure.
a lot of people deal with sundowners in the evening hours where maybe your loved one starts to get more confused, more agitated, and have issues like that. So maybe it's that we have brunch, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's that we have dinner early at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. It's Christmas. It's not, a normal day. So to consider those things and when
Mm-hmm.
is the best time of day for your loved one to be,
Exactly. And
involved.
then, definitely keeping with what you said, but thinking of Christmas as a season and not a day, meaning that maybe you celebrate with mom or dad on different days over the course of, the season, and then you reserve Christmas Day where it's going to be with other people and more structured and things like that for you. And so you won't feel bad about not celebrating with dad in this manner because you've done some things and created some new traditions that fit dad or mom better over the course of the whole season, and not just this one day that if everything doesn't go right this one day, then your whole season is messed up. So maybe even for Thanksgiving, maybe you celebrate with dad on Wednesday, and if something goes wrong and something gets burned up because you had to go, whatever, that was Wednesday. But then now you have something different planned on Thursday. So thinking about it as a season and not just one day.
That's a good one. I had not thought of that. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to just tying into Christmas, asking for help. You might not have a chance to do your Christmas shopping. So maybe you can get a friend, give them a list, and get them to go do your Christmas shopping for you. Or, if it's someone in your bubble, in your COVID bubble, being able to have them to come sit with your loved one so you can run out and take care of, your errands and run your errands and do your Christmas errands. Is definitely something, just tying back into what you said earlier and tying it into the holidays. And then also, I would say this goes with what you just said. Don't be afraid to keep it simple. This year, out of all years, I mean, I would say don't be afraid to keep it simple, period, at any point. But
To
especially
everybody.
this year, right? But especially this year, don't
Exactly.
don't feel like you gotta do the things
Do the
that you
most.
do the most. Exactly. Don't feel like you have to do the most. I had a conversation earlier with some caregivers, and there have been holidays where I went and picked up a plate at Luby's, and we just sat at the table and ate. Like it was, and we're okay. Thanksgiving still happened. Christmas still happened. It was just I didn't feel like I'm not about to cook some huge meal for 3 people, and they didn't care. They weren't like, oh my God, I can't believe you're not cooking, so just being okay with it,
Exactly.
But then I had another caregiver say that she really wasn't in the holiday spirit, but her mom really seemed like she was feeling it. So she kind of just sucked it up. And once she sucked it up, she did put up a little tree and did, a little decorating around the house, a little small tree, nothing major. But she said
Exactly.
it kind of boosted her mood. Just even it kind of put her into the holiday spirit because she wasn't feeling it at all. So
Right.
just don't feel obligated to do anything. Do what you feel to do. Over here, a little secret, I never took the Christmas tree down last year.
What?
I wish I could walk into our living room and show you the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree has been up since last December, okay?
Get out of here.
And so what I did, the flowers from the Walk to End Alzheimer's, like
Yes.
from the Promise Garden with the spin things on them. So I participated in so many walks that I have quite a collection of flowers. So I turned it into kind of a spring Alzheimer's tree that turned into a summer tree and a fall tree. And next thing I knew, it was December again. So the tree is already up.
I was getting ready to throw shade, but that makes sense. I like that.
Thank you for accepting what is really just me not taking the tree down. But and then the other thing is we haven't really had company. So
Exactly.
I haven't really felt any kind of way. And it's in the living room, which is not a room that we use often. So
right.
And my mom could care less. So I'm like,
And it goes back to doing you.
Right.
Whatever
And
works.
with it. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Again, this is year 7.5, 8 for me for caregiving. It takes time to get to, this point where you realize that, never, don't sweat the small stuff,
Exactly.
because it's all,
Mm-hmm.
and you will realize a lot of it is small stuff. Like, at
Yes.
some point, the things that we were getting worked up over year 1 or year 2, by year 7 or year 8, it's like, okay, whatever, and you just brush it off. So
For
yes, I
certain.
might still have, but you know what? I am going to take it down in January. I'm going
I
on
was just
record.
getting ready to say, I will be over
I'm
there
going on.
after
I'm going on
COVID.
record.
Okay. I will be
I'm
your
going on record
accountability partner in that.
to get treated now. Okay, all right. But again, y'all see, I'm okay with it, right? Even though I know she's silently judging me, I'm okay with it. Anyway, is there anything else on your list?
I don't know. That was most of it. Have fluid expectations. It's okay to change your plans. Um, have some sort of daily routine or ritual that it's not doesn't have to be rigid, but something that you stick to kind of help you get things done a little bit better. But again, it does not have to be rigid. And if you don't meet those goals that day, it's fine. But sometimes having a routine not only helps your loved one, but you navigate that day. I don't know. That's about it.
I actually have two more. So one of them is journaling. And we
Mm,
actually talked about this a little more extensively last Titan Tuesdays about caregiver mental health, but
exactly.
it really is something to help with burnout.
For
Um,
sure.
I always talk about this app that I have on my phone called Day One,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a journaling app basically. And so in the beginning, I tried to do the written journal. I could never find it. I was moving it around. I just wasn't consistent with it. I'm just not good at a written journal. But the app on
Mm-hmm.
my phone that I can do anytime, anywhere. I could do it if I'm sitting watching TV. I could do it, if I'm waiting on her at the doctor's office. I can do it if I'm on an airplane, anywhere. And it's just to basically spill your guts, you know? And it also has the voice to text function. So I could just hold record and just say whatever is on my mind, and it's there. If I'm talking about an incident that happened, you can attach pictures, you can attach files.
That's
And
great.
I have literally been doing this since 2015. And I
Wow.
can go back and see where some months I'm more consistent. Some months I might have skipped a month. Like you said, it doesn't have to be rigid.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll think about, let me give an update. I haven't written in this journal. And it's also me kind of just journaling and documenting this experience, this caregiver experience.
Right.
I'll, because truth be told, my memory is not the best as it is. So I can imagine, 10 or 15 years from now, all of these little things
Mhm.
that happen, the good and the bad, I probably won't even, be thinking about them. But to be able to go back and look in this journal and be able to see the
For
time that we
sure.
saw LL Cool J in concert, you know what I mean? Like just even things
Exactly.
that just make you smile, So
Hmm.
I do
And
recommend journaling.
journaling is amazing. And two things that I want to touch on that you said, saying or writing it and getting it out. Because
Hmm.
there's so many negative thoughts that a lot of times caregivers are embarrassed that they have. And so they
Hmm.
hold it in.
Hmm.
And you got to get it out, whether you say it out loud or journal it, so that it allows you to hear it, process it, and do something with it as opposed to suppress it. So I'm glad you brought that up. And then also you mentioned like LL Cool J and doing things that you like. That's something else. And it kind of goes back to the breaks, but it's also like it's important that you not lose yourself in this journey. And I know that oftentimes caregivers, they give me one of these, like whatever, when I go here, but you have to figure out a way to not neglect your own friends, your own family, your own favorite things. So if you enjoy reading and going on bike rides and going to LL Cool J concerts. You have to be intentional about finding a way to do those things from time to time, or it will increase your resentment and regret, which will increase your anger, which will get you on that burnout cycle. So,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We got 2 minutes left. I'm gonna say one more thing.
okay, yeah.
To speaking to the burnout piece is finding resources. You
Mhm.
know, again, we have the internet now. There are a ton of resources, including this conversation that you're watching right now, and the series that you're watching right now. But being intentional about finding resources, even if it's finding a caregiver, or reading articles about way to deal with different behaviors, or different holistic solutions to behaviors and issues that your loved one might have. But you have to be intentional about finding those resources, and so much of it is online right now.
It
So
is.
many people are offering these resources, but those things, like you said, help when you're headed towards that wall to kind of pull you back some, and figure out ways to cope and help with ways to cope so that you don't hit that wall. So is there anything
Mhm.
else that you would like to say before we close out?
No, I just want to circle back to the beginning that we see y'all and we know, um, not by experience, but we just know just from knowledge standpoint that it's a hard journey to be on. So as a medical professional who can clock out after dealing with a client with dementia, I understand that caregivers cannot. So thank you for the work that you all do. And we see you, appreciate you, and just I just pray that you all make a commitment to be intentional about taking care of yourself, because it is only then that you can be best for your loved one.
I think that is a great way to close us out. And thank you so much. How can they reach you, Myra, if they want to reach you?
You can reach me at MiraRollins.com, and there you will find all the things, including my podcast, my Facebook community. So just definitely hop on MiraRollins.com and subscribe while you're there. And let's get connected.
Absolutely. Myra offers all kinds of encouragement and motivation for the ladies. So definitely look her up. Her Facebook group, In the Middle with Myra, is a great resource for women in our demographic, or even outside of our demographic. All women, huh?
Exactly. It's definitely geared towards women who are 40 and over who are wanting to maximize the middle. But our topics are so relevant to women just in general. So definitely check out my podcast, In the Middle with Myra, and the Facebook community. So I would love for you guys to stop in the middle.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned something about caregiver burnout, some ways to cope and deal with caregiver burnout. And I think that's it for this evening. Thank you, Myra.
Merry
Thank you guys for watching.
Christmas.
We appreciate you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Uh-oh.